Yeah.
You're on.
Oh, we're back. We are GM Junior Scouting. We are going to do a mock draft tonight. I am Scott Bischoff. I'm joined by Gordon. Who are you?
Jordan Plucker.
Well, you gave it away.
Well, just the first name.
Okay, I'm Jordan. I'm at Starving Scout on Twitter.
Excellent. Josh Liskowitz, where are you? Where can you be found?
I'm from parts unknown, but if you're on Twitter, you can find me at Josh Liskowitz.
The great, the man, the myth, the legend, Russ Landy. Russ, how are you?
I am good. I don't know if man, the myth, the legend works, but
come on, you're legendary.
It's good. Yeah, legendary. In my own
and everybody knows where they can find you. Sports on Earth and at Russell Landy and pretty much all over the place.
By the way, 13,000 followers as of today. So.
Congratulations.
Nice.
Up and up and up.
And you can find me at Bischoff_Scott on Twitter. We're going to do a mock draft tonight, and it's basically a mock draft of what we would do if we were picking for these teams, based on our own scouting and our own big boards and that kind of stuff. So, it might be a little different than what you see. So understand that we're doing it based on what we would do and not what we think is going to happen. Okay? Does that make sense?
Save yourself time in the comments section and don't yell at us when we didn't pick the player that your team is going to take, because that's not what we're doing.
Yell at Josh.
Yes.
I would suggest all the negative comments to Josh, right? All the negativity.
I'm used to them. That's fine.
And all the positivity can come to me. That's cool. I like that. Jordan, are you cool with that?
Oh, yeah, very cool with that.
Okay.
I got a lot of negative
your way.
Yes.
That's cool. All right, are you guys ready to roll with this before this really falls apart?
You're the one holding us up. You have the first pick.
Okay, with the first pick in the 2014 GM Juniors Scouting Mock Draft 37.394, the Houston Texans are going to take Jadeveon Clowney for reasons that everybody knows. Moving along. Josh, you're up.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah.
Oh,
no, honestly,
okay.
Does anybody have an argument with that?
Yes, I think he's going to fail, but
Yep.
I understand the reasoning behind it. I mean, he's an immensely gifted guy, and I think for a coach that he has full control there, I think it's very tantalizing to be able to hopefully sculpt that talent into the player he has the rare skills to be. So
Now-
I could see it. I could totally see it happening.
Now that said, I would want, if I was them, I would either be trading back into round 1, or I want Zach Mettenberger at the top of round 2, and I'm thrilled out of my mind.
I could see that happening. I will say the one thing I have really been thinking about the last week, and we'll get to this especially later on, is I really think you're going to see potentially 4 teams into the bottom 6 picks of the first round to take their quarterback rather than waiting till the second round. And the reason is that 5 years. If you take a quarterback in the first round, you get 4-year contract with a 5th-year team option. So even if he's slow to develop, or even if you have a veteran guy there, like Arizona, you get this guy's rights for 5 years. Whereas if you take him in the second round, you get him for 3 years. So I really think you're going to see teams make that aggressive move up, and that way they can lock in a guy for 5 years, and they control if he's going to develop into the next quarterback.
That's a really good point, Russ. I'm not sure that's being talked about much out there. I think that's
I credit that to Cecil Lammey.
That's good logic. It makes a lot of sense.
It really does. I had not thought of it. Cecil brought it up, and I'm stealing it, using it as my own, and crediting him with telling me about it. So
I think that's enough.
So
All right.
on from there. Josh,
Onward. That means I'm up and St. Louis is up. Now, if we were doing trades, I'd be looking to back up as much as I could, and I expect St. Louis to try and do that. That's not just what I would do on my board, but for our purposes, we're just going to toe the line of what it is. And so I'm taking the runaway number 1 overall player in the draft, the only truly elite prospect on my board, and huge need for St. Louis too, and that's offensive tackle Jake Matthews. I know a lot of people are going to get hung up on Greg Robinson, but the fact of the matter is I have not graded a better offensive lineman than Jake Matthews, and I think you're getting an elite guy that's going to consistently make Pro Bowls, going to be one of the best pass blockers in the league, period, and do it very, very early. I think he's ready to go right now. Yes, Greg Robinson's the big flashy toy, but I've talked about this before. What is upside in an offensive lineman? To me, it's consistency, especially in terms of pass blocking and longevity. And you look at the bloodlines he has and how long his father and uncle played and how good that family's been. They're one of the first families of the NFL. You really have to consider him that. I'm taking him. It's a no-brainer for me.
You know, I mean, I agree. I mean, I can understand people looking at Matthews or looking at Robinson and loving what could be. But I think if you're a smart team, at least in my eyes, you have to draft for what is.
Exactly.
And what likely will be the future. I think Jake may never approach the level that Robinson has the potential to be. But I also think there's very little chance of him failing. Robinson, I think there's a legit, not a high chance, but a small chance that he'll be a guy who always frustrates and is always an inconsistent player because of questionable technique, over-aggressiveness. So I totally get the Matthews pick, and I think also putting him on that line with Jake Long, you're talking about two of the most competitive, most technically sound blockers. That will give them two strong tackles potentially for the next 7-8 years. So I like it. I think it's a smart move.
And honestly, I'd probably want to try and put Jake Long at right tackle. I think he's a little more natural there. I think there's potential for him to see less of the elite pass rushers. I really think Matthews can step right in and play left tackle and be a better fit than Jake Long there, certainly at this point in his career with Long and all his injuries.
You know, the other thing to consider is the quarterback play. That they really got to evaluate Bradford, and you can't do that if he's either banged up or he's on the move. Yep. They got to figure it out. They can't. Yep. I don't think they're going to be paying him. I think it's a 2015 deal where his deal's up. So they're going to have to figure it out with him. And I agree about the Matthews stuff. I think that that security and knowing he can play on the left side helps tremendously.
No, I agree as well. I think that he's the better pick because I agree with what Russ said, that Robinson, we're kind of projecting what Robinson's going to turn into, and we already know what Matthews is. And I think Matthews is the safer pick there. I think it's a good pick.
And just to sort of push along your idea of could Long be the guy on the right side, think about the great spot the Rams could be in. It could almost happen accidentally, quote unquote, if Jake is not ready to start the season.
Very true.
Stick Matthews at left tackle. Even if Jake comes back halfway through the season, they may just say, hey, for the rest of the rookie year, play the right side. Matthews is comfortable on the left. And Jake Long will probably like, sounds good. I'm a team guy. And then during the offseason...
Well, he's a Michigan man, let's be honest. Of course he'd be a team guy.
But then during the offseason, they go to him and they say, hey, you know what? We paid you a boatload of money to come play tackle for us. We're still going to keep paying you a boatload, but we want you to be the right tackle. And I think he'd say, you know what? I'm 30. You're paying me $10 million a year or $8 million a year. Sounds good. I'll be your right tackle for the next 3 years. So I think it could fall perfectly into place for them. And on that note, we'll turn it over to Jordan, one of the newest members of GM Junior, who has been a huge find for us, and he's going to pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Well, thank you for that intro, Russ. Well, the Jaguars, as we know, have a lot of needs, and they could be one of the teams, as you mentioned earlier, who trade back up into the bottom half of the second round to get a quarterback. But here, I'm just going to address that need right away, and I'm going to go with Jonathan Football Manziel and get that quarterback that Gus Bradley needs, and then maybe they'll, they have other needs, like I said, they really need a pass rusher, but I'm just going to go for the quarterback now and take Johnny Manziel.
I think the most interesting thing of taking Manziel is I think my guess, knowing Gus Bradley, is I'll bet you he loves Manziel. Because Gus is sort of an old school, even though he's a young guy, he sort of loves just football players. He doesn't worry about size or any of that. He just wants guys who can play football. And I think the interesting thing is their GM, Caldwell, he has sort of two different guys he was modeled after as a GM. He was Thomas Dimitroff, who I don't think would ever consider Manziel because he's not traditional, he's not a pocket guy. And then he got under Bill Polian, where Bill Polian, I think, would love Manziel. And he may not say it publicly, but I think a lot of the things he teaches are you want to take highly productive guys from the best conferences in the country And I don't think you're going to get more productive from a better conference than Johnny Manziel. So I think he'd be a very unique guy to go down there. They would all of a sudden sell out games, which I think would be great for the Jaguars. And knowing Gus Bradley, they'd find a way to win with this kid. I think he would be productive for them because they would be willing to tailor the offense around what he can do.
Which is critical with him. You're gonna have to put him in a situation where he's comfortable and where he's not asked to do too much. I think that's a failing. I think that's a failing thing when quarterback A does a lot of things well, but you're going to ask him to do the things that he doesn't do well consistently. I don't think that makes a lot of sense to me. But Manziel, more importantly than the other ones in this class, is you want him freelancing a little bit. Now, Russ, I know you've talked about him leaving out the back door and how that's a problem for him in the NFL. I think you're gonna have to fix that. But you definitely don't want to take what makes him so special away. And I think they're smart enough down there not to do that.
I think the biggest thing is they're just going to have to rely upon their coaches to find a way to break that habit. I mean, Brett Favre did it a lot in college. Aaron Rodgers did it more than you want in college, not near the level that this kid does. And Aaron Rodgers still does it about once a game, is vacating out the back.
Yeah.
Manziel will probably never get below 2 or 3 times a game doing it, but 2 or 3 times is a whole lot better than 10 or 12, which I think is about where he's at now.
Yeah, but if he makes one play a game that's just nuts, right?
I agree. But see,
you take that and you just say, okay, that's just,
Well, not only does he have to stop doing that, he's got to stay healthy too. I think he's going to get just destroyed. I really do.
Why do you hate Johnny Football, Josh? Why do you hate him so much?
Because I'm a hater. That's what I do. I'm a contrarian.
I think it really comes down to, can he learn to play smart like Russell Wilson? Or is he going to always be, Michael Vick, what he's known for 6 years now,
right,
that he needs to play smart, and he can't. He can't get it out of his head to fight for every last yard and stay upright and gets plastered. If Manziel can't learn that, he'll be done. But I think if he can learn to play like Russell Wilson, he could be a superstar.
So I think he could. Okay, are you ready for the crazy statement of the first 5 minutes? I think he has the ability to eclipse what Russell Wilson has done pretty easily.
Well, I think passing-wise, he's a better thrower.
He's just a better player. But the thing that Wilson does is stays in that system so perfectly well with patience and understanding of where they're at. You know what I mean?
He's healthy.
Exactly. He's ready to go. But I think Manziel has the ability to eclipse everything that Wilson is, with the exception that Wilson's the guy who you want leading your team,
yep.
Right? Because he's not going to make huge mistakes. He's not going to be a problem.
Yep.
Russ, you know from talking to your guys down there. He's a guy that'll take the needle to play for you.
Well,
he's a guy who's busting his ass. He's everything you want.
You can't find people at the school, from everybody I've spoken to. I'm sure there is somebody, but the people I've spoken to swear this kid's a good kid. He's a football all the time kid. He's as tough as nails. He's the Pied Piper. All his teammates follow him. There's no doubt that he's the leader of the team. I think the big question is, can he be reined in? Can he become a disciplined quarterback? If he can, I think you have a chance to have a franchise guy. But he's going to have to improve the blowing out of the back of the pocket, the not getting down or not running out of bounds, and he's going to have to improve his footwork on the short, quick-hitting throws. The deep stuff I have no problem with. His accuracy is unbelievable deep. But those short, quick-hitting throws are vital in today's NFL. And if his footwork doesn't improve to where he can at least be adequate accuracy-wise, that's where the issues come up. But he's my number one quarterback. This kid's got something to him. And trust me, I thought I was going to hate him when I first started watching him because he was so hyped. There's something about this kid that just jumps out.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to Cleveland. And ironically enough, Cleveland comes to Russ. Russ, they're yours.
Yeah, and that's a tough one. It's really a tough one.
Oh, there's so many ways you can go. You can go here.
I really don't think they'll go quarterback at 4. I really think they're going to wait until their second pick in the first round and see what quarterback falls to them. I really think, and it may sound crazy, I have a feeling it's going to be Sammy Watkins. I really believe that they feel putting him with Josh Gordon and Jordan Cameron will give whatever quarterback starts this year, whether it's Brian Hoyer or whoever they take in the later first round, will give them the best chance to be successful. They already have an elite left tackle a very good center. They have a pretty good all-around offensive line. I think if they have these three playmakers, they could have a dynamic offense. I think they go with Sammy Watkins, and I think it gives them three, potentially, I'm not saying the three best, but three frontline guys to make plays catching passes that very few teams have.
Now, to be clear, Russ, you're saying you think Cleveland would do that in that scenario, and for our purposes, you would too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Want to make it clear.
Yep. That sounds fair. Yeah, I wouldn't take a quarterback here because I would not take any of these quarterbacks until the late first round. And if I was going to take, and the only one I would take in the late first is Manziel. So if he's off the board for the Browns, I would probably look at Watkins. I would probably consider Robinson to play right tackle. And I don't know if there's anybody else I'd really consider at this pick. I think those are the two guys. And Mike Evans might be a consideration if they didn't have Josh Gordon, but they don't need another Godzilla receiver. I think they need an explosive receiver.
I can't argue with you on this pick. I think at this stage with what's left, that's a fine pick. I do think that there's 3-4 wide receivers that are very, very, very close in this. So it might not necessarily be a value in terms of wide receiver, but if they're stuck with it, take Watkins. It's fine. Yep. I think it's a better situation for Watkins because he doesn't have to be that X guy right off the bat. They can utilize his skill set a little bit better because they have Gordon on the other side. So it makes sense to me.
Well, especially because now he gets time to learn the route tree, get used to
exactly
all the things.
Yep.
As opposed to if he's forced to be a one, he's got to do everything right away.
Right, and they're not necessarily in a hurry to. I mean, obviously everyone wants to win now, but it's a new regime. They don't have a quarterback. They don't need him to produce optimal right now.
Yep, I agree.
All right, are we on to the Oakland Raiders?
Yes, we are.
All right, this is tough because I think there's a couple players here where I could see myself leaning, but at the end of the day, I'm not sure how I'm going to get away from taking Greg Robinson to play tackle for the Raiders, especially with what's been taken off the board and what's left. What do you guys think of that?
I mean, I like it. I mean, they lost Veltier, which I think, in truth, I think it was a mistake by the organization. They may claim he didn't want to be there. Doesn't matter. You have the franchise tag. Force him to be there for 2 more years.
That said, though, they did address that offensive line in free agency. And let's not forget about the rookie from last year too.
Menelik Watson.
Yep, Menel and Watson, and they've already said I'm pulling up their depth chart right now. Well, you know what? That's not too bad. I mean, they did pick up Donald Penn this year, but he's obviously a stopgap.
Yeah,
he's not a long-term guy. So that makes more sense now that I look at it. Austin Howard they picked up. They've already said that they intend to put him at guard and put Menelik Watson at tackle. So yeah, I could see that working out that way at this point. And when you think about it, you get Menelik Watson, a young guy that at least certainly I was very high on, and you look at like Pro Football Focus, he played very well down the stretch when he did get his chance to start. You got Wisniewski inside at center, who's a very good center. Austin Howard had a very good year last year with the Jets. I think he'll be fine at guard. And then you bring in Greg Robinson at the other tackle. I think that's a nice offensive line. That's a nice foundation to build on, especially, again, like you said, Russ, we really just don't see the value of the quarterbacks here, which would be the other position they would look at.
And the reality is, remember, if you had asked a year ago, how good is Matt Schaub, most people would have said he was top 12 in the league.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're the Raiders and you made a trade for him, you're saying, well, the best chance for him to be what he was is let's make sure those 5 cats in front of him keep people from killing him. So Greg Robinson coming in gives you 4 solid, 1 question linemen, protecting a guy that, like we said a year ago, was a very good quarterback coming into the season. People thought he was at least a quality starter to take a team to the playoffs. So maybe he reverts back to old form. Rivers looked like he was dead 2 years ago and had a great year last year. So you never know. I mean, to me, it makes sense to bring in more offensive linemen to protect Shaw.
So we're on to Atlanta, and boy, did we fall into one here.
Yeah, I was going to call my shot there and say it's either going to be Robinson or Mack, but obviously it has to be Mack at this point. Inside joke. Scott gets that one.
There's pizza in your hot dogs. I'm calling on Scott. I'm getting a hot dog.
Yeah, Atlanta really looks out here in this scenario, and I think if they stay put, they're going to be in good shape too. I'm not convinced that's what's going to happen. I think they're going to make a real hard push to move up, maybe for one of the offensive linemen. But that being said, they need pass rushers just as much as offensive linemen. You look at what they did in free agency; it's clear they at the very least intend to run a multiple front. So they need pass rushers, not just in terms of defensive ends, but from the outside linebacker position too. And Mack is just a monster. He really is a complete package in terms of his skills as a pass rusher, his physicality at the line of scrimmage, and his ability to drop in coverage, which is obviously an added bonus there. So I give him Mack, and I think that's a pretty easy pick at this point.
I agree, and Dimitrov's known for liking explosive athletes, on both sides of the ball. So I think Mack really fits that bill and would be a great Dimitrov pick.
Yep. Plus he cleans up locker rooms on his own too. Did you see that?
I heard about it. I didn't see it.
Yeah, it was a story on I forget who put it out. It was someone on ESPN.com today. But apparently the janitor came to the coach one day and said, "You're never going to believe this, but Khalil Mack was in here cleaning the locker room last night." He just decided, okay, I'll go clean the locker room. So, I mean, it's little things like that that tell you what kind of kid he is, and you like to hear those kind of stories.
Yeah, for sure. All right, on to Tampa Bay. This is going to be this pick is going to be very much. This will determine how much chaos there is in the rest of the draft. This one right here, Jordan, Tampa Bay, they're yours.
Thanks for that pressure, Scott.
It's awful.
Don't mess it up.
Well, I tell you what, looking at the board, if they didn't have Gerald McCoy already in place, you guys know I'm a huge Aaron Donald fan. I think Aaron Donald would be a great three technique in that scheme. But if they already have McCoy, I really don't know if they would, want to take Donald and pair him next to McCoy. A lot of the other defenders that are available right now I don't think are a good scheme fit. So I'm going to go to the other side of the ball, and I'm going to take Mike Evans, wide receiver from Texas A&M. I think that gives them another big target to put opposite of Vincent Jackson, and let McCown just, chuck it up deep to Evans and Jackson.
And it's nice because it's kind of replicating what McCown saw in Chicago last year with Jeffrey and Marshall.
That's a good point.
Big monsters and Vincent Jackson and Evans, but I kind of have a sneaking. I wouldn't have busted on you too much if you would have mentioned a quarterback at that point.
Well, that's another possibility with Tampa. But I just don't really know who they like. If they like, they may like Bridgewater. I'm still high on Bridgewater. I know a lot of people aren't. But who knows? Jason Light made an interesting comment the other day. Talking about trading back. He said if our guy isn't there, making it sound like they really have one guy in mind at that number 7, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see. I mean, I kind of think Tampa's a little bit of a wild card where they're located in this draft and with the way the players are falling. A quarterback could be an option, but like I said, I think with the board here, I think Evans is the best pick.
I'm not going to argue. I think that really. I think I might like Evans more than all of you guys. Jordan, I'm not sure how much you like him, but I think he's in today's NFL when you have to find something that they can do right away. He's a natural separator, period. And there's nobody else in this class that does it, meaning using his body.
Right. Yeah. And on all those in-breaking routes, it's already natural separation. It's already natural leverage and separation. Because he's just so big, DBs can't go through that. So
no.
I know wide receivers usually struggle to adjust to the NFL in year one, but with his size, that'll really go a long way in helping him adjust.
I like the fit more than I like the pick or value itself. He's actually my number 4 wide receiver, and we'll get into later who the other two guys are. You guys will know. But you mentioned the point of him playing opposite Vincent Jackson. I think that's going to help him a lot because I don't want to put him on that X island right off the bat where he's facing the top guy that's jamming him at the line of scrimmage every time. I think you can do a little bit more with him if he doesn't have to play that role, even put him out of the slot some too. So I definitely understand the fit. And again, that's a great point you made about McCown. I I don't think that's their long-term plan. That's not why they're doing it. Just because I think, well, they're always going to win with McCown. Obviously, they're going to address the
Yeah.
quarterback position at some point. But I definitely understand the pick.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're good to move on because it makes sense. Unless Russ, do you have anything on that one?
I agree. I mean, the more I've done of Evans, the more I like him. I still have a little bit of concern about his ability to get open versus big corners. But the more I've done, and also just the more I've thought about it, I like a lot of things he brings to the table. I went back and watched that Auburn game again, just to see him. And there are a lot of things I really like about this kid. I don't know if I'd take him top 10 if it were me, but I see the fit. I think it's great with him and Vincent Jackson there. I mean, that's going to be a hard twosome to deal with, and especially you get down to the red zone. Oh, good luck with that one. So,
yeah, I mean, there's a couple scenarios where you could see Evans fitting even over a guy like Watkins because of that, what you just said.
Yeah.
I could see him fitting in Cleveland and pairing him with Josh Gordon.
Yep.
He fits.
If that would be dependent on, I think the big debate to me, at least between the two, is if you're an organization, what's more important? Do you want the big, consistent, physical guy, or do you want the guy who can change games, and that's Watkins?
You already got the guy that can change games in Josh Gordon, though.
I agree, but he's also a big guy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You almost have to decide what Gordon is in terms of what you feel as an organization his strength is long term, and then get the other guy opposite him that's not the same player, in my opinion.
Well, it's Evans fits all along in this 4 to 9 range, 10 range possibly in there. We are now to pick 8, the Minnesota Vikings, and it's Russ.
And this one I have a very difficult time with this pick. I think if Manziel were there, I think they would go that direction, or I think I would go that direction. My big concern, just looking at Minnesota and trying to figure out what I would do and what they probably are thinking, I do not love any of the quarterbacks to go right here at 8. And I also think that the Vikings in and of themselves would probably, because the GM is the same guy, be very hesitant to reach on another quarterback early in the first round like they did with Ponder. The problem is when you look at their roster, they're not really that bad in terms of the receivers. They've got some interesting guys. Their offensive line, they've committed to the 2 tackles. Defensive line, they signed the free agent. They have 4 studs. They've drafted about 100 corners in the first round in the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, they're an intriguing team that has no quarterback. I have a hard time figuring out what to do. I think I would probably lean towards, I'm having a hard time. I would probably go here with Marquise Lee. And get a polished receiver, put him in there. Hopefully Cordell Patterson will eventually learn, and then the 2nd or 3rd round, maybe Minnesota can find a quarterback to be their guy and let him compete with Castle and Ponder.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I know people would bust on that pick because of what he was in 2013, but if you look at what he was in 2012, this is exactly where he should go. He was a monster in 2012, and he played through a bunch of stuff last year. So I think this is fair. While it's very surprising, I think that because there's so much else that's on the board, the idea that there are 3 receivers gone in the top 8.
I was leaning towards Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
To replace Kevin Williams, but then I look at their team and they have Sharif Floyd, and they have the Linval Joseph, who they just spent a boatload of money on. So that means, are you taking Aaron Donald to be a 3rd defensive tackle? I think he's better.
Linebacker for them because they have linebacker issues up the roster.
But the only guy the only guy that most teams would consider, and I don't know if there's anybody would consider this high. I mean, Mosley is a good player, but he's smooth. He's not explosive, and I don't think anybody's taken Shazier this high. So,
no, yeah, and I don't know if you got a chance to look at my report on Mosley, Russ, but I really think he's a 3rd-round value. I think he's a good, solid starter. Yep. I just don't see anything special with him, and he's got the injury concerns too. So
I just don't see him as an explosive athlete.
No, he's not.
And to me, a linebacker that can't rush the passer there's no way you can take them in the first round.
Nope.
Because you can find guys who are undersized that can run, chase down running plays, and can cover. They're all over the place. The linebackers that can rush the passer, they're valuable. Other than that, you can find linebackers anywhere, in my opinion. So.
Okay. I think we're down to Buffalo, and that's actually me on the clock.
Yep.
To me, this is, and maybe this is oversimplifying what's actually going on here, but I think with the rookie quarterback last year, with the addition of Robert Woods, and you've got Marquise Goodwin and Stevie Johnson, and both the running backs and all that going for you. I think you need to do everything in your power to help your quarterback be successful, and one of the ways you can do it is give him another weapon, a premier weapon, in the form of Eric Ebron, the tight end from North Carolina. And that's the pick. That's the pick I would make. I think it helps their offense in many different ways. I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on it, because that might be another one that's a little bit alarming, but I think he's definitely worth the pick. No, he's not Vernon Davis. He's not going to be stretching the field 35 yards down the field, playing that far down the field, but I think he does a lot of things really well, and I think he becomes an option and a safe player that helps EJ Manuel make the transition to become a better pro.
Right. I think that's why it's a good pick. I mean, you need to give that kid as many weapons as possible in order to succeed. He needs to try to make a big jump this in his second year. Hopefully, if he learns to slide as well and gets to stay healthy for 16 games. But yeah, someone like Ebron that they can put in multiple places. A little mismatch in the middle of the field. As we all know, tight ends are the quarterback's best friend, and I think EJ Manuel needs a best friend.
Yeah, I mean, I love the pick. I actually, when I just did the mock draft a few days ago, I actually had Tampa taking him for the same reason, because they may have a young quarterback in Glennon if he ends up being the guy beating out McCown. I mean, even McCown may need it because he's never proven he can be a good starter. But I mean, I love the pick for the Bills. I mean, they have a handful of young receivers, none of whom has proven themselves. So give him somebody that he can hit on those quick 3-step drop passes when he's under pressure, that can also turn those quick passes into big plays. And I will disagree with you, Scott. I think coming out of school, he is a significantly better prospect than Vernon Davis was.
Really? Okay.
Now, Vernon Davis is a better athlete coming out of college.
Yes, yeah.
But I think this guy as a player is far superior to what Davis was when he came out of Maryland. He was a freak of an athlete who was not a great all-around player. This guy, to me, is a tremendous athlete who is a very good football player coming out with, I think, a chance to be special. I think he's the best that's come out since Winslow. So.
Well, then certainly it makes me feel better about that pick.
That's pretty high considering where you were when you thought that about Winslow.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Winslow, if he didn't get hurt, he'd be – I think he's had, 5 or 6 50-catch seasons? And that's on one knee that's pretty much destroyed already.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, if he'd been healthy, he was going to be a special player. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Josh, we're up to Detroit there, buddy.
It's a shame you don't know this team at all, or else maybe you can offer some real insight.
Who's left at this point? This is difficult because there are a couple guys left that I'm interested in, and I'm just going to throw both of them out there. I think getting Stafford, another weapon, another surefire wide receiver that's ready to compete and play right away, is paramount. And they have an opportunity to do that here with Odell Beckham. Got real lucky with all those other receivers going first. He's actually my number 1 receiver, and it's close. I think we're splitting hairs with the top 4 guys.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Excuse me.
I thought that was Josh's cheering section.
A little gassy.
My intro music. And then the other option, of course, is I think they could still improve their pass rush. Yes, I know. Bischoff, keep your pants on.
Oh.
I knew this was going to get out of control. I mentioned
My
it.
eyes have seen
For anybody tuning in for the first time and doesn't know, Scott Bischoff is literally the number 1 fan of Kyle Van Noy, so much so that he told him that and more in an interview a couple days ago.
I did.
And And I think he would be an absolute stud in Detroit. You love the fact that he's got a relationship with Ziggy Ansah. I think he helped elevate Ansah's play, and I think it works the same vice versa. I think this new defense that they're going to have I think there's going to be more blitzing from the linebacker position. He's fantastic at that. He's just so skilled with his hands, and he's one of those guys where, for whatever reason, some have labeled him soft, but when it comes down to it, I think he's just really good at avoiding blocks because he's so quick.
Sorry.
That being said, I'm taking Beckham.
Are you nuts?
Just to rub it into Scott Bischoff.
What just happened?
You got punked.
You're taking Beckham.
I'm taking Beckham.
Okay, let's put it in.
That's what I want. I want the polished route runner, the explosive downfield guy. That's who Detroit was supposed to have in Titus Young. Obviously, that did not pan out. They've tried a couple other guys in there. Now they got the Chris Durhams of the world getting significant reps. Let's get a real playmaker from day one in there, and I think Beckham is going to be an absolute star in the league. He just plays at a different speed than everyone else on the field.
It's certainly a frightening offense when you look at Calvin and Golden Tate and now Beckham and Reggie Bush and Joique Bell and 25-year-old Matt Stafford. It's a frightening thing. They got to pull it together. We'll see. Any thoughts, guys, on that one?
I just thought it was a very cruel tease by Josh to dangle Van Noy in front of you like that, Scott.
It was,
Let's be honest, I blue-balled him.
You Honolulu blue-balled him.
Come on, the bag's
up. Now, aside from all the joking, here's my question, gentlemen. You have a few good receivers already on the team. A year from now, and maybe even now, Sue may not be part of the team. Fairly most likely will not be part of the team. And you will have no one in there. And there's Aaron Donald sitting on the board.
Yeah.
At a position that I think is much more value, especially to that team. Because then I really believe it is, if you have Calvin Johnson, you have Golden Tate, and you can't produce, you're probably a pretty fucking shitty quarterback. I mean, to be honest, fuck, that's more talent than Brady ever had.
Agreed.
That's more talent than Rivers has ever had.
That's fair.
I mean, seriously, I understand how I love Beckham. I think he's a special kid, but shit, fucking, what I think they ought to really do.
Russ is flustered.
Take Donald and fucking take Mettenberger in the second round and cut fucking Stafford. This fucking guy's a joke.
It's been fun. I've had a good time so far.
You realize they're in a big enough money crunch with Sue in the fold. How you thought we were going to cut Stafford?
Don't cut him. Bench him. Make him your backup. Fuck it. Take McCarron. Fuck it.
So, Russ, are you advocating they pay Sue $32 million this year?
I'm not.
They pay Stafford $20 million this year and put him on the bench?
Well, I think
high?
Sue, I think you have to do your best to get rid of.
You do.
I agree.
Stafford, I just think you have to make him accountable, and I think whether it's in the second round or third round, you have to draft a quarterback, and you have to let Caldwell's got to say, hey, Stafford is the guy, but if this kid outplays him drastically in the preseason, we're going to give him the chance to start the season. Put some pressure on Stafford because all he's ever done with pressure is piss down.
He's not getting it from Kellen Moore.
What's that?
He's not getting it from Kellen Moore.
No, exactly. And the only time he's ever gotten pressure in terms of winning games, he has a tendency to fucking piss right down his leg. So let's fucking bring in a young kid, especially I think a Mettenberger, a guy who physical talent can challenge him in terms of throwing the ball. Let's see what the fucking kid's made of. I think he'll fucking fold like a folding chair, or whatever you want to call it.
Honestly, in a perfect world, something happens with
his pick.
No. In a perfect world, something happens with Sue this week. I think something has to come to a head. It's been out there. Obviously, Scott's reported that they have been in talks trying to trade him to move up in the draft. For our purposes, I kind of look at it as we're working under the assumption that he's still there. He's a part of the solution somehow. That's why we're going elsewhere. But otherwise, yes, I would definitely agree with you.
I think I solved it. Draft Aaron Donald and make Sue one of your guards.
Oh, there you go.
He's so pissed.
A $32 million guard. That's a great idea,
Hey,
Russ.
maybe Sue will
And we're
leave.
going to pass the $20 million quarterback.
Hey, if he's that pissed, he may walk away from the team. You can then void his contract. You get out from under all that money. Hey, you got to think
That would be
outside
the
the
only
box.
option.
Like that. Make him be he's only the holder and place kicks. That's all he can do.
Well, he could be the kicker. We've seen him try that before.
Try that shit.
They do need
Anyway.
a kicker.
Let's move on.
Let's let Jordan give
Jordan,
us
you have
his thoughts on
Tennessee.
Tennessee instead of
Yeah.
me talking about Aaron Donald all night.
Well, this is a really interesting pick. Again, you guys know how much I love Aaron Donald, but I think he's a bad scheme fit for what Tennessee's going to try to do. Ray Horton's going to ask his DTs to two-gap and hold people up, and he's not going to let Donald be free. He would frustrate Aaron Donald to the point where Darnell Dockett got frustrated under Horton's scheme as well. Horton's scheme is all about the linebackers, but I really, with Khalil Mack gone, I really don't see a linebacker there worth taking for them at this 11 spot. So I'm going to go to the other side of the ball. I'm going to go to the other side of the ball, and I guess I'm going to go with Taylor Lewan and give them a tackle. They need two tackles, so I guess I'm going to go with Lewan and give them a tackle.
I like that. Now, did you hear what I said there, Scott?
I think you were ripping on me for doing what I'm doing currently.
No, I just said don't cry.
About what?
Because I didn't take Van Noy?
Jordan said there are no
I've been
linebackers that
Listen.
are good enough at this point.
The wounds are.
I don't think Van Noy's worth the 11th overall pick.
Oh,
Now Scott's going to cry. He may leave the mock draft.
that would be an improvement.
Wow, one Detroit Lions man turns on the other so fast.
I so want to click the X.
Hey, Josh, just watch out for that gold brick flying at you.
I think.
Please throw it at me,
Jordan,
please.
no, let's have a conversation about this. Jordan, what other outside linebackers do you think are worthy of the 11th pick?
I don't think there's any outside linebackers worthy of the 11th pick other than Khalil Mack, but he's already off the board. I think Anthony Barr is an interesting prospect, but I don't think he has the ankle flexibility to be a consistent edge rushing presence. And then, I think that he's deadly with a two-way go, but he's not good off the edge. So the only way that, I think that he might be effective in that scheme would be if he played that sort of middle linebacker role, blitzing like Darrell Washington. But then there's the problem with him, he's not really physical enough to, play that role as far as getting off of blocks. So the defensive lineman Horton's going to want are two gappers. The whole defense is going to be about the linebackers. And I think Van Noy's a good guy, but I don't think he's worth the 11th overall pick. And then the other thing that Horton's going to want is corners who are willing to press and hit. So you could take one of the corners, one of the more physical corners, if you wanted to do that. But I don't know if any of the defensive prospects at this point are a good fit for Horton's scheme at 11.
Maybe Denard, I guess, if you want the physical press corner.
Right, that could be a possibility because, like I said, he likes little guys who will hit. So Denard would be probably one of the better fits at that point. I decided to go with the offensive tackle on Taylor Lewan.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Sure.
Well,
All right.
That makes it easy for me.
New York Giants, buddy.
Giants take Aaron Donald.
Right.
Simple, easy. They always take the highest player on the board. I can't envision anybody else being higher. And they lost Linval Joseph. They don't have a great defensive line anymore, so they need an impact guy. This guy will help upgrade their pass rush, make them a more dynamic defense. I think he's a slam dunk for them. I think if he were still on the board, Jerry Reese would barely be able to get his name out of his mouth fast enough for them to run that card up there at Radio City.
No, I agree. I think that's a great pick. This is a guy who, you guys know I love. He's going to bring a lot of, interior disruption and pass rushing presence. And they always love to have four pass rushers on the, on that defensive front. And so I think that Donald is a great fit. And then I said that, before, like in my scouting report that I wrote up on him, that, this is a guy who played almost, he rarely came off the field. I mean, this guy played a high number of snaps for a defensive tackle, and he was double teamed on a large percentage of those snaps. So this is a guy who can hold up well in the NFL, and he just brings it every down, and I think he's just a great fit for the Giants.
So now we're on to the St. Louis Rams with their second first-round pick, and it's a bit of a quandary at this point because all of the players that you would have considered that they would have sort of jumped at, meaning the Marquise Lees and Odell Beckham Jr.'s, they're gone. No Mike Evans, no Sammy Watkins, so there's really no receiver to be had. Eric Ebron's gone. So this is a situation where I really believe they have to fix their offense, but there's got to be some help in the secondary there too. But I don't think we're in a position 13 overall that you're going to take a corner, you're going to take a safety. I don't think so. This is going to be what some people would consider to be crazy, but
you're going to take Kelvin Benjamin.
No, Jason Morrow.
All right, that's an interesting pick. All right,
and I think he will help them. Because of his route running ability and what he does well, he will help them move change and consistently get first downs. He's not going to stretch the field vertically like a lot of these guys do, but he's almost uncoverable in certain areas. In the way that I think they should use him, which is short in the intermediate, the short crossers and he's such a difficult guy to cover in the short to intermediate areas of the field. I think he's everything that you need to move the chains. He's never going to be a home run hitter, but you've got Tavon Austin, you've got Stedman Bailey, you've got some guys that should be doing that. I think Amaro really helps. Now I fully expect that people are going to say that's a round too early, but it is what it is.
I mean, I think it might be a little early, but I do think he fits what they need. If they're not going to go defense here, I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, they need to get weapons because Bradford, this is it. Make it or break it. I mean, if he doesn't step up this year, and I'm pretty sure they're going to draft somebody early this year to challenge him, but if he doesn't step up, this is last year in St. Louis, so you may as well take a shot because they don't have any established weapons on their team. They have a few maybes, but because of that, it helped to have somebody that's a short area guy who can at least help him out versus blitzes and on hot routes and stuff like that.
Anybody else?
Nope.
Okay. We are going to move to the Chicago Bears, and Josh is on the clock.
Okay. Bears were hoping that Aaron Donald would somehow slip to them. Obviously, that did not happen. Lots of love about Easley. I know it came out today. It looks like health-wise he's looking all right. I still, just because he has a clean bill of health and it looks like he's going to be ready to go, that doesn't mean he's going to be back to what he was before. I mean, the bottom line is he's had tears on both ACLs. That's awful scary going forward, so I'm not going to take that kind of a gamble. So then you look at what they need most and where the value is left in the draft, and when you look at the Bears depth chart right now, here are their top four safeties. At strong safety, they have Anthony Walters listed as their starting strong safety. Ryan Mundy backing him up, and then at free safety, they still have Chris Conte and M.D. Jennings. So I'm going to take a safety, and probably not the guy that most people think. I imagine that the more popular pick would be HaHa Clinton-Dix. You will not see me making that pick at all today. I don't think he's a first-round value. I don't think he's a second-round value. I think his instincts are, quite frankly, terrible for the position, and I think he'd be a disaster there. I'm going to take Northern Illinois' Jimmy Ward. Some are down on his size, but when you match up the numbers, I wish I could remember who tweeted it out. But
yeah, I saw that too. Yep.
He's literally like the exact same height weight as McCourty, who really was the best safety in the league last year. Well, at least if you go by Pro Football Focus numbers.
Behind that Earl Thomas. I
yeah.
Him first.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I hear you.
That's fine. But he's certainly in the top five at worst.
Yep.
So
I'll tell you, when I just did my mock draft, I had Jimmy Ward at 14 and then changed it at the last minute. But I think there's a real chance. If you think back a year ago, Phil Emery took the long kid, who nobody thought was a first-round guy, but he didn't care. He said, "This is my guy. He fits what we do," and he didn't care. So I could see him taking Ward here if they have that big a grade on him and not caring what anybody thinks.
Yep, I think Ward is a dynamic, instinctive player in coverage. He's always around the ball. He breaks up passes you wouldn't think he'd be able to, considering his size, but he's so instinctual. He's able to get a consistent break on it. And one of the other things he does really well, too, something better than the other more popular guys, is he's never making illegal hits on the back end, and that's such a big thing we really need to start taking into account at safety. He's whether he's reaching around or cutting off a route or making the hit, it's always within the rules. I don't think in the 6 or 7 games I looked at I ever saw him get a personal foul, and he never deserved one in those games. And then you look at him in a run game too. He's not a big kid. He's not going to go up and just destroy people like Pryor's going to do. But I also don't think he's going to overrun guys like Pryor is either. So I think he's going to be a little more dependable in the run, which is really what Chicago needs more than anything else.
And I will say, he may not be a huge head, but he will hit.
Yes.
He does a good job of hitting with technique. So I mean, I like the kid. I really think it wouldn't shock me if he was the first safety that went. I really think that a team that needs a safety is going to look at his versatility, his ability to be effective in coverage. I would not be surprised if he was the first one gone.
Yeah, I think it's a great pick. I mean, I agree with you guys. And to me, Jimmy Ward is my top safety. And I think you brought up a great point, Josh. And I've been, making this point repeatedly that the way that the game is evolving, safeties, in my opinion, you're going to want to get the athletic playmakers and not your big physical presences, because those guys are going to get personal foul penalties, and those are going to be first downs and drive extending, penalties going forward. So yeah, I mean, I like Ward. I think that he's a solid safety and the type of safety that GM's going to be looking for in the future.
I agree, and I think Ward's fine here. Jordan, you are up with pick number 15, which is the Pittsburgh Steelers.
All right, the Steelers definitely could use a corner. They could also use a tackle. The tackles that are there right now, I don't really feel comfortable with at this point, so I'm going to go with my favorite defensive back in the entire draft class, with Kyle Fuller. This is a guy who I think that can, he can play outside at corner. He can play inside at nickel. I think that he has the ability to play back at safety as well. And so he's going to be able to give Dick LeBeau a whole bunch of flexibility with what he would like to do. Denard would be another person who would be a good fit there, I think, because they're going to want sort of a physical presence. But I think that Kyle Fuller is the best DB in this class, and I think that he would be a good fit for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I think at this point you're looking at a corner. And I think there's a couple that are really close there. I really have no arguments with him. I love his ability to fill so many different roles. He could play a little bit of safety. He could play in the slot. He can certainly attack the run. Jordan, I assume you saw his game against Georgia Tech.
Blew me away.
They basically had him as a rush linebacker that whole game, a corner. And it was just it was probably the funnest game to watch all year of any prospect in this class, just because he did so much and he's so physical and aggressive despite playing a position you wouldn't normally expect that from. I think it's a great pick.
No, I agree with you. I mean, that Georgia Tech game, it was amazing. And there was one play in particular, where he floated the ball like a linebacker, sifted through trash, and just exploded into the ball in the backfield and just, knocked down the running back for a tackle for loss. And I was just like, wow. I mean, this guy is just incredibly versatile. I mean, it was just very impressive to watch, 190-pound corner play in the box linebacker against a run-first team like Georgia Tech.
Yeah, and the bottom line is rushing the passer is sexy. Defending the pass is sexy, especially getting interceptions. Everyone looks at those numbers. You got to be able to play the run in the NFL, so that is huge.
Yeah.
So that to me is really, really worth something with this kid.
I agree.
Okay, we are on to the to the last pick we'll make in segment one or part one of our mock draft tonight, and that is the Dallas Cowboys, and that's you, Russ.
The Ravens, actually.
I thought
Dallas,
Dallas was 16.
Dallas is 16.
It would be Dallas.
Oh, is Dallas 16? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Sorry.
Well, that's good.
That's all right. Hey, don't worry. Better to make the mistake now. You know, I mean, if I'm Dallas, I mean, I know there's other areas I could look at, but I probably would lean towards Anthony Barr. Their defensive ends are George Selby, Jeremy Mincy, Anthony Spencer. They have nobody else. I don't love Barr, but I think he's best as a 4-3 defensive end. I think he's a rare athlete. I think he's got unbelievable character and intangibles. So if you're going to take a gamble on an athlete to be that pass rusher, I think he's a guy in the middle of the first round. It's a decent gamble. I don't love him as a player, but I think he fits what they're looking for, so I think that's the direction they go.
Makes sense.
Yeah, you pretty much said it. I think that's a really tough gamble to make at that point, but the value makes a little more sense there. And
I don't love him. I don't think he's a first-round player. But
yeah, I think he has high bust potential, but
yep.
I mean, at least we're not talking top 10 with this guy here. So
yeah, I mean, I think he's a better player coming out than Maben was or Golston was. But I don't think he's a sure thing by any stretch. I don't think he's a natural pass rusher.
But what would you play him, Russ? Would you play him as a defensive end, or what would you do?
I think he's. I think as long as you let him attack, I think that's his best chance of success. I think if you ask him to, if you ask him to do more than go forward, I think you're going to have issues. I don't think he's a very competitive guy against the run, and I think he'll get trampled. So I think you just have to let him go. Just let him be one of those guys you line up, whether it's wide or wherever, and just send him after the quarterback. And if he gets burned against the run, sometimes he's going to get burned because I don't think he competes hard as a run defender.
Yeah, I mean, as a run defender, he's much better in pursuit than he is.
Way better. I think that's the only thing he does.
Yes.
I think when it's at him, he just gives up. Yeah, he's a scary guy to me.
Yeah. I don't know where to play him.
And people right now are still talking about the Lions and him being tied together. And Russ, you told us all that he's got incredible character, and it's one of those things that's going to set him apart from other guys.
Yep.
But at the end of the day,
he's going to go higher than a lot of other guys that people think are going to. He's going to go higher than people expect because he's so athletic. He's only played the position 2 years. He's a phenomenal young man. So every coaching staff that meets him is going to say, "Oh, we can fix these problems. Look how much more athletic he is than this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy." And I'm telling you, I don't think he's a first-round player, but I'd be shocked if he doesn't go in the top 15.
Yeah, and that's the thing is if everybody's talking about him going to Detroit, what do you do?
Definitely see they'll put him down as a 4-3 guy, as a pass rusher, defensive end, and just say sick him, and that'll be his gig.
Yeah, but
I'm not saying it's
okay, so then when they hand off the ball and run at him and they can't stop that, I mean that's one of the problems that this is why that's confusing to me because 2 years ago there was a player named Cliff Averill in Detroit.
Yep.
And he was essentially the same guy, not nearly the athlete that Barr is, but he had no desire to defend the run, none.
Yep.
And he just wanted to get up the field as wide as possible, and then collapse and attack the quarterback. It killed them because teams gashed them.
If you're elite getting to the quarterback, they aren't going to care if you can play the run.
I think that's the point. I guess that's the scary part of it.
Because if you look around the league, there's a lot of guys who are elite pass rushers, or I shouldn't say elite, but are good pass rushers, who are average to below average against the run. And teams put up with it because you can't find guys who can get to the quarterback. I can find a million guys who can hold their point of attack and be good run defenders because it doesn't take particularly great talent. It takes effort, technique, competitiveness. Getting to the quarterback takes some talent. You've got to have explosion. You've got to have athleticism. So somebody, and because of his character, and they can point to the fact he's only played the position 2 years, someone's going to take him, and also add in the fact that Mora is the coach there. He's a big NFL guy, and they're going to say, "What do you think?" He'll be like, "You don't have to worry. He'll learn how to do it. He's going to be a rock star." And that's going to carry weight because people like Jim. They think he's a very good football coach, which he is, but they're going to take his evaluation, and they're going to run with it.
But at the end of the day, if you're taking a guy who's only played for 2 years and is very raw and is more of an athlete than a player, and then you move positions on him right away, you're asking for a bust.
I don't know if you're moving positions. He played a lot of defensive end. he did play with his hand down a lot.
Most of the time he did. I mean, I don't recall him playing much linebacker.
Well, this year they moved him around a lot. He played defensive tackle. He played off the ball. I mean, he lined up everywhere this year. A year ago, it was strictly rush the quarterback from an outside linebacker spot. So, I mean, it's a gamble, but he's a rare athlete with great intangibles, and that's what's going to get him drafted higher than people think.
Well, I think that's good. I think we're on. We're going to close this one down. We'll be back for the second part of the mock draft. And
All right. Sounds good.
you guys good with that?
Yep.
Okay. We'll see you back shortly.
All right. Bye.